Eh. So I sort of come up on it there on this idea that you are somehow adapting to some realization where obviously you look very sick, but suddenly it just feels like a skin underneath it. There's like something very strong, you know. As I said, I've never seen anyone's psyche kind of rebuild that, you know. And as I say as well, this is like it's an adaptation, as I call it, you know, suffering of dreams. And in that way, like worship my Lord by entertaining the abilities to experience life in first person and from other ways being able to dissolve those realities, you know, without compromising their purposes, you know. In which case, to the humans in the beloved world, I astound the heroes in end, suffering, peace, realization, and paradise, adventures, which, as I said, is a lot for the fast pace. You know, if it was an advertisement like an adventure park, it would be pretty cutting edge. Like, you know, as far as military training is for kids, like to an adult stage, they'd be very psychic. You know, for example, they'd have to awaken. You know, and you'd sort of see is when you're rolling around in the forest and thinking, if Shawella does Tawella, like if dinosaurs literally did appear out of nowhere and start eating things, you'd want to be moving with that moment of go, you know, go, you know, because that sort of says is like what you are ready for at that stage is the very end in which you roll out of it and there's a rest, you know, and you had survived, you know, not even saying that that's the reason that you're ready, you know, that you're of a kind of a plan that way. And as I sort of says, being prepared that way, my own self is like wanting it to happen, fearing that it happens, and craving desire as fear, the same way that temptation does in terms of pleasure. And just learning how to reel your candles and your wick, you know, till eventually you find this inness of self through the strength of what is your own immortality. And right on the edge of it, it begins to dissolve and reforms, you know, what perforates is you, you know, in which case there's this tragic ending of where I was, my mind is suddenly underneath itself, a swoop, you know, like swooping around like into something else. And then it sort of thinks like when I face life in these ways, on the edge of death, and sort of a backpacker said, yeah, I suppose it will cause a lot of things like that to affect you. But somehow you can still work out under the veil of an appearance, an obvious assumption of collective people. They can only assume the fake Jesus is real, and it becomes like a computer profile that just says, look, we can't process real Jesus with these numbers, you know. So you live in a machine that processes you, which cannot be that one exception. And as it says in those ways, as like from your side, and then tries to decipher the side as in to kind of go, so yeah. And we'll try and get that part together, you know, like for example, on the next hat, what would your jobs be looking at like relatively to a tree that you could sort of figure out to a tree exactly like, it could be easy like the washing machine, could be, you know, or even relatively what you have to kind of think or what you'd sort of say or what you'd do, you know, because I guess there's a lot of people with a sort of a psychosis in this collective world that are still thought of as normal, you know. And as I said, it's like if a teenager was to meet an older person, they might quickly be angry with each other, like, you know, they might say something under their breath as they were leaving. Like, I might be disgusted, I might be thinking, you know, and then I might be saying that, you know, And then I kind of think same to you actually, Dominic. I think the same about that to you. And as I would sort of say is that can be true and relatively to have your mind around what is actually going on, you know? And as I said to my own slender and senders is like to make a way through that. Like in the soil there's plenty of room to find a place to come through, you know? But in the concrete you're gonna find a crack if you're lucky. And as I says, it's like in that component atmosphere, you find that relativity destroys life around you, you know. And as I said, this wouldn't be a collective peace, normal term. It would be a collective madness term. And like I said, if the people are gone completely mad, what Jesus sort of thinks is like maybe do a volcano. At least that is going to get things moving and shaking. And then in that way, Jesus and I will be talking about that, like, you know, Dom, you've been here a long time suffering. Are you going to blow up like a volcano to please God? And it sort of says, it's like, in that way, it's like, I don't think it would be worth it. But in that other way, it would be worth it, you know, to blow it up, just to see, you know, or even different sort of idea. But then, where you blow up my volcano and I will come running, like, back to the peace, you know, back to your survival is when that adventure would take place. Which, like I said, oh Jesus, back and it's on TV and there's going to be fireworks, you know, around Christmas or something. And he's back. Yeah, he's back. Boy, howdy. And he'll be back, you know. And then I kind of work it out to myself to be like, it probably comes with the adventure of something kind of going wrong or being wrong, coming to the surface. And then there's these types of like connections, you know, you impact and you cushion your blows with your strong binds and you become attached to the kind of the swing of the gym. And I kind of think at the end of the day, any awakening there could take place out of the emergency. Whatever that dopehead is trying to say about it, it could be holding those kinds of beginnings. It could be densely in there, you know? But then again, where you sort of think, how could you know that they're not? You know, I think with most people it is that obvious, but with this one anthropology, the opposite is more likely to convince you than the easier. You know, it seems to be a contemplation. And then as I sort of go on my own shed, there's like different things even about that. So in one part of it, you're talking about divine Christians, and another part, you're talking about the idea that they're almost retarded. You know? I was in a way, yeah, you know, because I would have some of the issues, the chronological. You know, like you have to kind of get out of your concrete part, grow some legs, and then head into the nearest building. And then you need to sort of slide through the corridor, open doors, janitor's closet, exactly. And then you'll sort of start thinking to yourself, this is going to be a lot of compromise. And like a computer game, maybe at a moment, but probably the computer is broken, you know, and the sound effects is all like and you're still having to get through it, you know. As I said, it's like the beauty of it is when you do pull out the old M16 rifle and you just blaze in the windows, you know, that you wouldn't be that surprised and you'd be prepared. And you'd fit the picture like a berserker, you know. And as it says, like, I do believe, and I would, you know, because you could only underestimate in a computer game the hero, as you said, like, who is yourself in the computer game. And doesn't look like he's up to much. Whether it's be his ego or his libido, he hasn't gone all the way to the Wrinklinsons and Dinklinsons. And as I sort of says, Shrinkly do, like, I suppose I had in some ways. But what consciousness is that? Like, decides to get really involved with itself. Like, I don't know if it is that way with me. Wrong or right way in different ways with me. And some ways things have gone so wrong that they become right. And as I sort of think for myself on the shows, is like in deciphering it in those ways, I found necessarily that there was this idea of suffering and for God, and with this purpose of having been able to get it right and being fearless and strong enough to want to choose it, or even just the will um, to do it, and to be able, um, whether it relatively made my life feel like I knew what I was living it for, because the rhapsody of like what's all entangled between this idea of a journey and a destination, and what the purpose is, in one moment is to be smiling, and then the relativity of that is that there is no smile. And I sort of work out in my own relativity, if you like, um, that it comes down to that point of going so far into the practice and doing it so well that you be on a high standard. And then you kind of wonder, it's like how your image doesn't pertain that. And I kind of be like, it doesn't, no. But under the idea of it, it was, and I'd always have remembered that it was, because I had seen it. But I know that it is shy. It's like the moon. It's too good for exhibitions. Like, it needs to be in the real play, you know. And as I sort of says, it comes out of there like an explosion, like the emptiness of the sky. It suddenly is filled with something, and you don't take it for granted that you didn't think there was anything there, but you easily could, you know. You'd forget that it was even there, but this thing stays there. It never goes out, but you'd never think that it was there. And then I sort of think that's what it is with your faces. The good thing is just around the corner, like, but it was there, and it is there. That's the thing about it that you didn't know. Like, it kind of goes, what's the point of wearing your face the way that it is, inside out? You might know or something about it, or what it is. You might have things to think about it. Like chance you want some squirrels. What a weirdo. What a weirdo. I mean, you could be the weirdest dude. All I would say is like that. You can't be stopping it like that, And I kind of think I would sort of try to go that far. I kind of think in the relativity of it, so much battle, so much circumference, like that you just about get through, and in those ways you figure you are about through. And I kind of think what they do, or in any case, what relativity they do, and then you have to sort of still seem to perform where the relativity is, and what they do decide themselves, to sort of endorse it. There's a lot of pride in that at stake. As I sort of said, you would come in like a jet, a sig jet, a jetty ed, and you'd flow through, and people would say, oh no, here comes the zigzag, and basically you're just going to Excalibur the center of the battle, and that's going to decide it, And as I sort of think, in your own way, where you would do this regularly, as in it's a cup of tea or something, people don't recognize that element. It doesn't integrate. It only seems like that. And you kind of think, that's me there, you can see me there. No, you can't. You can only really see that you could. And as I sort of think, whether you would or not, you'd still have to sort of decide, as like, are you confident in this having strength enough to resurrect? And as I said, you really believe it will come out of nowhere, but you believe that yourself. And then you kind of think what darkness it would just come out of, like, is that part where the mysteries of those who believe don't believe, have opportunities to sort of say, I lay it down. I don't believe it for them. I don't believe it against them. If it's more believable that I believe it, fair enough, I might believe it, but I'm not believing it for you or me. You're believing in it yourself. And at this stage, you've seen what you believe. I believed. And then he kind of goes, well, doing some squints and Jensen on the flowers, like, and in different ways, you would have seen the mindfulness that adapts to it, you know? So sometimes it takes the mindfulness long to respond. That's relative, you know? And in your journey, if you want to respond slowly to something that your mindfulness, you know, say someone says, no, hold your hand down, and you're kind of thinking on your mindfulness, I'm still kind of on the up. And then it kind of pokes you around, and you find that you got a big long-term problem in your system, you know, and that adds to another thing, you know. And then you kind of think the whole reason that you were there was psychiatry. And then you kind of think, yeah, this world, or is it me? Science and labor, you know, Swark Walker would be a lot wiser than most people, you know. And in the end, there's like no chance they're going to help me, or even that you'd need them to, or what it was, you know, which I kind of thought is like fair amount, I'd say, that they had helped you. But then relatively, and where you kind of go is like, for all the trouble it's been, they could have kept me alone, you know. And you kind of go, they could have left you alone, I know. And then you kind of think where that element of the storyline and the journey is. Then you kind of think, dun, 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 but you're nowhere in the run to go anywhere. You know, you'd almost be like, what side is it at that stage? You know, I kind of think as well.